the EQ de Marc back in the 16th century. This was a private monetary standard of the exchange bankers alone, not guaranteed by any state, in which they could settle the relative value multiple local currencies by means of meetings of a select few bankers at regular fairs. This was a supranational private money interacting with domestic public monies. Isn't that exactly what XRP is, XLM is? The EQ de Marc and the Templars and the origins of banking, because when we're discussing Ripple and XRP and Stellar and XLM, we need to go back to the origins of banking to understand the opportunity and the capacity and the magnitude of what Ripple XRP and Stellar XLM are actually doing, because what they are solving and what they've created is solving a thousands of years problem that has been going on since the origin of banking. Ever since the origins of banking, there's been this problem. And now fast forward thousands of years later, hundreds of years later, and what we got is the solution. If you're new here, my name's Rob from Stargate. We cover everything when it comes to the ISO, utility coins of Ripple, XRP, Stellar Lumens, XLM, and we get our scuba gear on and we go diving deep and we find the stuff that your other favorite influencer ain't finding. So leave a subscribe button, hit a notification bell, and get updated in real time when we release these deep dives, market updates, newsletters. We do it all here. Also, like this video, leave a comment as I'm going through it if you actually really enjoy it and want me to do a follow-up, because there's so much information on unpack when it comes to this topic that I'll do a follow-up. I'm sure there's more information that I can dig deep and find, because what I've already found it's pretty hefty so far, but I'm sure there's more out there to give us more clues as far as the script to XRP and XLM adoption, because the EQ de Marc was a virtual currency. It was intangible back during the medieval ages, the Middle Ages. And during that time, you had the EQ de Marc, which basically the present day version of that today is XRP and XLM. And you're going to find that out as we go through this video, and what the EQ de Marc is, the problem that they were having, the problem that still consists today, and the solution that Ripple XRP and Stellar XLM are providing. Along with, we've already done a video on this. So if you want to watch this, the secret 500-year-old world currency wrote the script for XRP holders must-watch video, definitely a must watch. We go through the original kind of PDF that I went through back in 2017. When I initially saw this and I read through it all, I was like, holy crap. Like, this just all makes sense. And this is such a big deal that ever since that point, I was XRP only. Then I got into XLM and went down that whole rabbit hole. But here we are today. So I'll link this video in the bio. You got to watch that video after watching this, or pause this video, go back to the last one, get the context for what I'm about to share today, then come back. So I will dive in right now. But before I dive in, I just wanted to mention one thing. You got to come join the Discord. I mean, just in the past 24 hours, I just posted it in the Proof of Gains chat. Look at this. Like, we had made a signal to our members last night. So we notified members last night at 10:04 p.m. to buy the graph at 13.5 cents. We notified members literally 30 minutes ago to convert 70% of their graph holdings now at 22.5 cents. We're talking about a gain of what? More than 50%, 60 to 70% gain in less than 24 hours. Less than 24 hours, you made 60 to 70%. So what we did is we didn't just hold and kind of hope for it to go up to the moon. No, we looked at the Stargate signals here for the graph, and it's looking like we nailed the top. We nailed it right there, 22.224, and we're seeing it fall. Oh, disgusting. But we nailed that top. So far, we're still holding 30% for a moonshot, but we took those profits, we converted it into 2 coins. And if you want to know what those coins are, come and join the Discord and find out. But as you can see, I have the proof of gains here. We like to show the proof of gains because a lot of people out here don't do it. But I find that, you know, after showing the receipts, there's not really much to say afterwards as far as, oh, this, that, and the other thing. The receipts are there. Go look at the receipts. So 1,300 put in the graph last night. Have all the receipts here. If I were to convert it back, it turned into 2,000. So that was a gain of $700 in less than 24 hours off of 1,300 initial. But what we did was we converted it into 2 coins here. Come join the Discord and get updated with all this stuff. I mean, Eric here, look at Eric. Boom, 92% gain off of a 30x long on XRP. I believe he opened that up yesterday. So he made double in a day. And that's what we're doing over here at Stargate, along with the news, along with the deep dives, along with what I'm going to share with you today about the EQ to Marc, which is something nobody talked about before we mention it first off. We do the trades and we develop software to put us in a better position to make more strategic trades, better sells, better buys, and we're really crushing it over here. So come join the winning team, join Stargate. I'll put the link in the bio to join the Discord, as well as if you wanted some free education as well too, go over to the website. You could book a free info session with me, 30 minutes. We talk about a game plan for you. But if you wanted some free education, first off, to get your feet wet, click that right there. Your free opportunity of crypto accelerator course, over like 19 videos in there, jam-packed. And honestly, what you're about to learn today with the EQ to Marc, like knowing what you're going to learn in this might be better off if you do it first. Because then once you find the EQ or watch this EQ to Marc video after, you're going to be like, whoa, now all of it's fitting together. Because what is about to happen is something that is so big. And we're literally here at the moment and we're caught onto it. And majority, 99.99999% the population, it's going right under their noses. So if you're here today, pat yourself on the back because you're a part of that 0.00001% of people who are even looking for this stuff, let alone understand it. It's pretty huge. I love doing this. I love putting out these videos and staying on top of the game because I'm doing it anyway. So you might as well share it with the rest of the world. Like if I were to just sit here and do what I'm doing now, yeah, that's great and all for me. But I'm glad that I'm able to share everything that we're doing with the world as well too at the same time. It's a win-win. But I'd released this newsletter out to our website subscribers to get free updates. And I let them know it's time for you to take action. Crypto's melting up. Do you have a game plan and strategy for this upcoming crypto hyperboom cycle? The Stargate signals had called every single bear market bottom to a T. So if you want to get hooked up with a game plan here, it's time to level up for 2023. It's finally the year. I mean, I know everybody says it every year, but this is the year. You have all the tools, you have all the resources, you have all the connections now. Just book that call. We'll get you situated. Then we have 100% gain in 44 days Filecoin. We converted some of that and we're still holding some Filecoin. We have testimonials here. And then we have this video. This isn't a drill suddenly in 2023. I'm still sticking by that. That was a video we did a couple weeks ago on YouTube. Now let's dive into it. The moment we've been waiting for, right? So we have the Templars and the origins of banking. And let me tell you this before I even start. I don't have any background knowledge of the Templars. I know there's a lot of stuff with that, but that's a separate rabbit hole I plan on going down myself as well too. But for now, we're just going to talk about the origins of banking. I'm not going to explain the order of the Temple, the Sol, and all this stuff. Quite frankly, I don't know it, but I will go down that rabbit hole 100%. But it's more in the fact of the theme of the story. So let's go into it. The streets of London, like those of many European cities, treasure among their names and distribution traces and clues to their long history. Going down Fleet Street, famous as the former home to London's major newspapers, as you reach Chancery Lane at the boundary of the city, there's a curious circular chapel, Temple Church, consecrated in 1118-5 by the Order of the Templars, but also the first bank in London. Exploring the origins of the Templars also means exploring the origins of banking. Originally, the Templars, the very ones that appear in Dan Brown's contrived novel The Da Vinci Code, were a religious order that arose after the First Crusade in 1099 to protect the pilgrims who then began to visit it from all parts of Europe. It was a pilgrimage of substance that demanded no small amount of funding and involved not a few risks. To mitigate these risks, the Knights Templar developed a powerful network of what we might call branches throughout Europe. For example, in London at the Temple Church, where pilgrims could deposit funds for their venture in exchange for a letter of credit that they could reimburse for the same amount at any other, shall we say, branches. It was a flying money system that had already been developed earlier by the Chinese dynasties. Although it was under state tutelage, the corporate governance of the Order of the Temple was much more complex. It was a private bank owned by the Pope, then in permanent struggles and alliances with the other earthly powers of Europe, and managed by an order that had taken a vow of poverty. A kind of Goldman Sachs of medieval times, but run as if it were a Mount of Piety, an institutional pawnbroker run as a charity. The financial services offered by the Templars would not end there. As depositories of huge amounts of savings and custody, it was only a matter of time before they got into the business of credit and risk management, an activity that endowed them with great power. Until their dissolution in 1312, Jerusalem had fallen a little earlier in 1244. The Order of the Temple was the world's major financial institution, a large multinational that concentrated a large amount of very valuable information on kings, princes, aristocrats, and wealthy members of the clergy. Their disappearance, not exempt of several widely known conspiracy theories, left a considerable void in Europe for a service that was beginning to become essential, not only to ensure cash on long journeys, but also to facilitate payment in international transaction. This void was covered locally by entities that gave credit in their respective areas of influence. The following innovation that helped establish the foundations of the international banking system would be the appearance and consolidation of the Bill of Exchange. The Bill of Exchange, the incarnation of which is documented through Europe by the 16th century, was a standard promissory note with the value before any bank. Until then, each branch issued its own promissory notes that could be only reimbursed at its own branches or banks where this type of foreign exchange operation was carried out, hence the name. However, the Bill of Exchange, issued in écu de Marc, allowed traders to hold a stamp of solvency, which they could trade through a wide network of financial institutions. In this way, a merchant in Barcelona could obtain finance in Florence by discounting their bills. As in time of the Templars, the key to the value of the banking activity was information. Knowing how to identify solvent merchants and sharing this information securely permitted the extraction of network economies from each of the nodes in the same way as with credit cards, whose value lies in acceptance by a greater number of establishments. The origins of banking were also at a time of greater orthodoxy and moral order when paying off debts. An illustration of this, okay, so we get kind of the back scene, right? We get the back scene. And what I wanted to dive deep on is the écu de Marc. The écu de Marc was this tangible magic kind of bill of exchange that all these private bankers, this network of bankers internationally agreed upon that, hey, this is kind of like it. You're in good standing. If you hold the écu de Marc, then you're in good standing. It was your stamp of solvency. So now let's go into the next article because we have the warrior monks who invented banking. So if you had been at the Great Fair of Lyon in 1555, you could have seen the answer. Lyon's Fair was the greatest market for international trade in all of Europe. But at this particular fair, gossip was starting to spread about an Italian merchant who was there and making a fortune. He bought and sold nothing. All he had was a desk and an inkstand. Day after day, he sat there receiving other merchants and signing their pieces of paper and somehow becoming very rich. The locals were very suspicious. But to a new international elite of Europe's greatest merchant houses, his activities were perfectly legitimate. He was buying and selling debt. In doing so, he was creating enormous economic value. A merchant from Lyon who wanted to buy, say, Florentine wool could go to this banker and borrow something called a bill of exchange. This was a credit note, an IOU, but it was not denominated in the French livre or Florentine lira. Its value was expressed in the écu de Marc, a private currency used by this international network of bankers. And if the Lyonese merchant or his agents traveled to Florence, the bill of exchange from the banker in Lyon would be recognized by bankers in Florence, who would gladly exchange it for local currency. Through this network of bankers, a local merchant could not only exchange currencies, but also translate his creditworthiness in Lyon into creditworthiness in Florence, a city where nobody had ever heard of him, a valuable service worth paying for. As we go down, every few months, agents of his network of bankers would meet at the great fairs such as Lyon's, go through their books, net off all the credit notes against each other, and settle any remaining debts. Our financial system today has a lot in common with this model. An Australian with a credit card can walk into a supermarket in Lyon and walk out with groceries. The supermarket checks with a French bank, which talks to an Australian bank, which approves the payment, happy that this woman is good for the money. Checks and balances. But this web of banking services has always had a darker side to it. By turning personal obligations into internationally tradable debts, these medieval bankers were creating their own private money outside the control of Europe's kings. Rich and powerful, they had no need for the coins minted by the sovereign. That description rings true even today. International banks are locked together in a web of mutual obligations that defies easy understanding or simple control. They can use their international reach to try to sidestep taxes and regulations. And since their debts to each other are very real kind of private money, when the banks are fragile, the entire monetary system of the world also becomes vulnerable. We're still trying to figure out what to do with these banks. We cannot live without them, it seems, and yet we are not so sure if we want to live with them. Governments have long sought ways to hold them in check. Sometimes the approach has been laissez-faire, sometimes not. Few regulators have been quite as ardent as King Philip. He owed money to the Templars and they refused to forgive his debts. So in 1307, on the site of what is now the Temple stop on the Paris Metro, Philip launched a raid on the Paris Temple, the first series of attacks on Europe. So they burned him to death. But as you can see, what has happened in the past has been ringing true today. And those bells are ringing louder and louder and louder. And as we go into these next articles, you're going to see why that's the case. So if you like what you're hearing so far, leave a comment. Let me know. Let me know if you want me to do a follow-up. Also, leave a like. Come join the Discord. Say, yo, I just saw the EQ to Marc video. That is crazy. Nobody's ever talked about this. I'd love to hear that. It'll keep me going. So definitely do that. Now we got this. So I came across this. I'm at page 10. And let's go up here. So paper for Heterodox Economics Conference in 2014, right? Ripple launched, Stellar launched, Chain launched, etc. One money or many currencies. This paper has its origins in the ongoing debate about the nature of money. However you attempt to define money, there is in every case an example that eludes the definition. To avoid this difficulty, you can simply accept that money changes in its nature. This is an exploration of how theories might change if we gave more importance to the existence of multiple currencies, so that instead of considering money as a single concept, we thought about it as something that can have different forms in different places and changes over time. It is an exploration of a wide-ranging topic, so it touches only briefly on issues that could benefit from much longer discussion. It is not intended to provide answers, but rather to suggest some new and possibly radical questions. There is an underlying tension between views of money as natural expression of value. There can be no unerring measure of either length or weight of time or of value unless there be something object in nature to which the standard itself can be referred. And the alternative recognition that money is invented by people and therefore takes many different forms. In much economic theory, the existence of separate currencies is airbrushed out of the picture. National sovereignty in separate currencies is seen as quaint. Economists have focused on a fairly simple view of money as convenient alternative to barter. This has led to a preference for a single world currency. The well-known 19th century economist was dismissive of separate national currencies. So much of barbarism, however, still remains in the transactions of most civilized nations, that almost all independent countries choose to assert their nationality by having to their own inconvenience and that of their neighbors a peculiar currency of their own. In the real world, of course, currencies are mainly an expression of national sovereignty, so that actual currency reorganization would be feasible only if it were accompanied by profound political changes, one world money, one world government. And money is a convenience, and this restricts the optimum number of currencies. In terms of this argument alone, the optimum currency area is the world, regardless of the number of regions of which it composed. So there we go. Now it goes down. From the start, it was assumed that the ideal situation would be a single currency. However, the existence of multiple currencies and the way money has changed over time may be evidence that this view is too simple. Money is a collective term covering many different currencies. A universal currency does not exist as a separate commodity. Money is not homogeneous, but it is a collection of different currencies which share similar characteristics, but each have an individual balance between the various properties. This may be true even when currencies appear similar and perhaps even share the same name. Money is a surprisingly elusive concept. Debt, for example, which is commonly thought to be an absence of money, can itself become money. Whatever barriers the state or academics may erect within which to confine money, money has an innate ability demonstrated not only during recent decades, but by thousands of years of history to jump over them. This is a thousands a year problem. Money is so useful, in other words, it performs so many functions that it always attracts substitutes. And the narrower its confining lines are drawn, the higher the premium there is on developing passable substitutes. As an institution, money is almost infinitely adaptable. So it goes through the history. Treating money as a collection of different currencies brings theory closer to the reality of everyday life, helps to understand the evolution of money. We can discuss how the currencies we use today are similar but also different from the currencies that we used 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, or 50 years ago. Enables different theories about money to be combined. Currencies may be based on precious metals, on transferable debt, or on state authority, or a varying combination of all three. So they lay out some of those theories. So it can be based on precious metals, on transferable debt, or on state authority, or varying combination of all three. Interesting stuff here. Would the USA be able to be a world superpower if it was not able to run up large debts because its currency is a world reserve currency? It is generally agreed that the creation of many currencies from the US dollar to the euro were the result of political pressures. Was the original invention of coinage any different? Historically, there is a general pattern that the evolution of new currencies has gradually broken the link between precious metals and money. From classical antiquity to the Middle Ages, almost all money was based on precious metal coinage. So Adam Smith and his contemporaries treated money as a commodity, often a precious metal used as a general intermediate commodity, which is universally bought and sold and provides an improvement on barter. With the evolution of paper money, currencies changed, but theory was slow to catch up, making paper money behave as much as possible like gold. More recent monetary theories, which Schumpeter labels together as cartelism, treat money as a token. They can be divided into credit and state theories of money. The credit theory concentrates on money as a promise to pay. Money can be any transferable debt, provided that the debtor is credible enough for the majority of people to believe that they will repay. In contrast, the state theory concentrates the function of the state as the originator and authorizer. So private money. Currencies in the form of writing go back to Babylonian times. In the heyday of the Roman Empire, most large transactions were settled by using notes or bonds. But in the chaotic centuries that followed the decline of the Roman Empire, the use of all forms of money declined. By the 12th century, however, the use of money started to revive. During the 16th century, an international group of bankers and merchants developed whose fortunes were based on settling international debts by means of written bills of exchange. This network of exchange bankers relied on their own virtual currency, the EQ de Marc. Back in the 16th century, this was a private monetary standard of the exchange bankers alone, not guaranteed by any state, in which they could settle the relative value multiple local currencies by means of meetings of a select few bankers at regular fairs. This was a supranational private money interacting with domestic public monies. Isn't that exactly what XRP is, XLM is? A supranational money that interacts with domestic public monies that can be exchanged and converted into, and it's a virtual currency. So the virtual currency, you can literally change the EQ to Marc right here with XRP or XLM. So let's do that. This network of exchange bankers relied on their own virtual currency, XRP. This was a private monetary standard of the exchange bankers alone, not guaranteed by any state, in which they could settle the relative value of multiple local CBDCs by means of meetings of a select few bankers at regular conferences. And this was a supranational private money interacting with domestic local currencies. Around the end of the 16th century, however, this system collapsed as a result of regional rivalries and changes to the French monetary system. Guys, like the EQ de Marc, XRP, XLM, they literally are doing, and now with the technology to do it right this time, they are literally going to replace what the EQ to Marc is. That's for sure. I mean, it's the same type of thing here. And if we go down, there is more. Keynes, Bretton Woods, and the end of the gold standard, everything that we teach about in this. So if you like what you're hearing, go and get that course. It's free. But as we go in here, it's talking about the Bretton Woods Agreement creating an indirect gold standard. Most currencies had fixed exchange rates against the US dollar, and the US dollar had a fixed exchange rate against gold. Then if we go down, it talks about as financial strains built up during the 1960s, the adjustable exchange rates that were the heart of the Bretton Woods system were subject to increasingly frequent readjustment. Support grew for floating exchange rates that would reflect international foreign exchange markets and avoid the need for awkward sudden adjustments. Robert Triefin made the case for an international currency reserve based at the International Monetary Fund. International Currency Reserve. He argued that the burden of managing an international reserve currency was too great for an individual country. The United States was encouraged to run up deficits because this provided foreign currency reserves for other countries. As the US dollar is the international reserve currency, its debts count as international money, and there seems to be an almost unlimited demand for them. His argument underestimated the political attraction of access to almost unlimited borrowing. Since then, the international financial system has relied on fiat money and flexible exchange rates. It appears that this might be similar to the 16th century écu de marque system described above, where a cartel of bankers decide the international value of currencies. This created vast additional opportunities for foreign exchange trading. As banking regulations were relaxed, banks and financial institutions created complex financial derivatives that enabled them to gamble on alterations in relative prices. This created a pyramid of risk which collapsed in the financial crisis of 2008, resulting in worldwide political and financial strains. So conclusions, he goes into it. There are multiple different currencies. Understanding the changeable nature of money and the interplay between currencies is becoming ever more important in a globalizing world in which computers and the internet are now enabling currencies to be more easily created and managed. The world's financial system now depends on electronic records of credit and debt. Money can be created by tapping numbers into a computer, and the electronic age is enabling the growth of alternative currencies like Bitcoin and mobile phone credits. Money changes. We can either be the victims of this process or we can control it. If our market society produces results that we do not like, perhaps we should consider changing the currency. So they could either be the victims of all this going on, so it seems like he's tied up with the big boys, or they can control it. And I think we know the answer to that question. They're going to do everything that they can to control it. So very interesting stuff here. This stretches back so far because it's such a huge thing that they've been trying to deal with for thousands of years, that they've been spending decades plotting this, putting it all together. Huge stuff, huge stuff. All right, and finish it off here. And if you like what you're hearing so far, leave a comment, let me know, leave a like, show some love, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because there's so much more I gotta share with you guys. I found some undercover documents that are brand new. Nobody else has shared them yet, so I'll release those videos tomorrow. In this connection, the most prominent difference between the dollar and the thaler is to be found in the logic underpinning their governance. While the governance of the 21st century dollar is premised on safeguarding the circulation of the dollar liabilities at their market value by making sure that collateral securities are marked to market, that repo markets are liquid, that cash equivalents issued in the money market trade at par or quasi-par, the governance of the 16th century thaler revolved around ensuring that thalers did not trade at their market value, also referred to as commodity value, bullion rate, commercial course, but instead circulated according to their fiduciary value or legal course. In this respect, the commodity versus credit dichotomy that is often applied to distinguish between respectively pre-modern and modern currencies is misleading. Far from being commodity monies, precious metal coins of medieval times were current in exchange insofar as they enjoyed a fiduciary value in excess of their market value, and this was also true for the coins of classical antiquity. By contrast, contemporary credit monies are fully commodified debt instruments whose currency is inherently reliant on the existence of liquid markets for debt, both public and private. While the fiduciary value of the thaler had to be always higher than its market value, otherwise thalers would be melted down or anyway disappear from circulation, the fiduciary value of the contemporary dollar must always indistinguishable from its market value, otherwise there'd be a panic. In other words, the currency of the contemporary dollar is a consequence of its liquidity. This is not to say the dollar is a creature of the market, rather is to stress that while both US Treasury and the Federal Reserve are crucial institutions in the making of the dollar, they only matter insofar as they can underpin and sustain a steady supply of and liquid markets for dollar-denominated debt securities. In short, the efficacy of their fiscal and monetary governance depends on their capacity to successfully enable rather than escape market valuation. So they have an incentive to keep inflating until one day that bubble's going to pop. This leads me to the next point. The contemporary dollar could not be more different from many of the monies of account that proliferated in the late Middle Ages. For while the contemporary dollar is an object of monetary governance, the late medieval monies of accounts were instruments of monetary governance. Take for instance that already mentioned scudo de marco or écu de marque. This was an imaginary money created by 16th century merchant bankers operating at the Fair of Lyon. Its purpose was to govern both international payments and currency speculation, in particular to arbitrage at a profit on price differentials between circulating precious metal coins. Today, no imaginary money is required to enable payments and speculation, or to govern the practices by which more money is made for money. It is true that until 1971, Currencies were formerly anchored, but this was no imaginary scudo. Under the Bretton Woods Agreement, international holders of dollars could demand gold as a means of final settlement. But in the 16th century, merchant bankers could not demand any specific thing for the same purpose. The imaginary scudo was not a security of exchange or a store of value. In fact, no scudo was ever hoarded or accumulated, loaned out at interest, offered as a means of final settlement, pledged as a security, or sold in the money market. The scudo was unpossessable, unalienable, unchanging. As such, the scudo price could not be priced. Unlike the dollar, the scudo did not convey any economic value in and of itself. It was always worth nothing. So as we come down here, it says no other currency can match the demand for yield and safety that the dollar currently satisfies. And it comes as no surprise that the international community of money wants dollars more than any other currency. In the late Middle Ages, nobody wanted imaginary scudi or lire. These imaginary monies enabled speculation. However, they were not objects of speculation, as they cannot offer any security or yield. Their intrinsic undesirability is precisely what sets them apart, not only from modern and contemporary monies, but also from ancient units of account. It is worth stressing this point again for purposes of my argument. When referring to the ancient units of account, there we go. So we have another one here. So this is historicizing the money of account. This was back November 2021, very recent, 329 to 337 pages, a lot of stuff in there. But as you can see, they're talking about the same problem that's been going on for thousands of years. They're talking about ancient money here. And I believe within this decade, they have reached the Holy Grail. They found the Holy Grail that is going to fix this problem of international commerce. And let me actually point this out, because I said it in this video back here, but I'll do it for here for context. You had from the ECB, the working paper towards the Holy Grail of cross-border payments. It came out last year in August. And in there, it literally talks about all these same things. It talks about the bill of exchange. Everything that I read to you is everything that is in this fully brand new working paper from the ECB towards the Holy Grail of cross-border payments. Literally read the abstract down to the first 5 pages and you're going to be like, holy crap, this is so on point. And as you can see here, I'm going to go to one part, and even that will ring true. Short history, the search of the Holy Grail since the Middle Ages. The process through which cross-border payments have been settled has evolved over the centuries. To a significant extent, medieval foreign trade and therefore cross-border payments were facilitated through the shipping of bullion or via payment in gold coin. Nonetheless, payment through coins was inconvenient, costly, and time-consuming, as in many cases it was necessary to pay a professional money changer to ensure the type of quality of any coins tendered were the ones required standard. Therefore, the first major financial instrument employed for the purpose of executing international transactions was the bill of exchange. Everything that we had just read, right? So as we go down, I was talking about the London wool exporter, right? And we go down and we see that, as we see here, this paper argues that after more than 1,000 years of search, the Holy Grail of cross-border payments can be found within the next 10 years, within this decade, 2030. They've already found it. It's more about slowly kind of ushering it in. And they have already laid out this whole game plan, this roadmap right here. And we're so on top of it. So if you're with me, you see what I'm seeing in this, let me know in the comments. Say, I'm with you, man. I see everything that's going on, and we're going to optimize this opportunity to the best of our ability. So come join the Discord. Link is in the bio for that. Say what up. Be like, yo, the EQ to Marc video was fire. I'll be like, thank you. And then we'll get you squared away with a game plan as far as 2023 goes. You want to get ready. I mean, let's check in on that trade we were talking about earlier. We nailed the top. So if you like this video, leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let me know what you'd like me to cover next as far as the EQ to Marc or any deep dives. I can do another stellar deep dive. I think I'm going to do another stellar deep dive. So if you want to see that video, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Let me know you're excited for that, and I'll press that out maybe tonight if I'm feeling it. Also, there was this on LinkedIn from May 2020, banking lessons from the Middle Ages. And there's this guy here. He's an IT security compliance leader, security professional. I enjoyed this BBC article on the warrior monks who invented banking. We had gone through that. So we can skip all that, but let's go to his thoughts here, because I'm thinking the same thing. You let me know in the comments if you're thinking that as well too. But this way, of course, as an early example of trade finance and correspondent banking, but it seems to me it was a harbinger of two even more modern concepts. Our friend was providing banking services, but there was no bank in sight. He was providing a service right where the transactions were taking place and providing value directly to the merchants Isn't that what embedded banking is about? Value is exchanged in the international currency of the Ecu de Marc. Isn't that what tokenization, Facebook's Libra, and other flavors of digital currency are trying to achieve? Is there more we can learn from practices from centuries ago? For example, how to focus on what the end customer needs, where and when she needs it, rather than existing processes. I think so, my man. So that spells it all out for us. Literally, I think my next deep dive might have to be on embedded banking and finding undercover documents with that. You let me know if that's the case. I mean, I'll do that. But I think we're on it. The Ecu de Marc was heavily slept on. Not many people talked about it. I don't think anybody talked about it. I personally originally saw it from this Tika Tawari document back in 2017 when he had pressed it out to his subscribers. And ever since then, it's always stuck with me. So if it's going to stick with you too, let me know in the comments. Let me know. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.